As we all know, Congress has failed to come up with the latest version of financial relief for Americans during the pandemic. So over the weekend, Donald Trump signed an executive order. And yes, there are some questions about the constitutionality of this executive order, but nonetheless, he has, in his mind, provided a stimulus for Americans because Congress has failed to do so. Now, Democrats have already made it clear that they're not likely to challenge this in the courts. But here's what we know about the executive order so far. So if you look at it closely, you look at the reading, you'll see that it actually does not provide the economic relief that the vast majority of Americans need. But Trump described the memorandum as an action providing an additional or extra $400 a week and expanded benefits. But under Trump's measure, the federal government is requiring states to pick up the tab for $100 of the $400 additional benefit each person may be able to receive. On top of that, a state must agree to enter into this financial agreement with the federal government for any unemployed person living there to get any of the additional benefits. So it appears that he's gonna make it increasingly difficult for people to actually qualify for this federal aid. But more importantly, Trump is saying that it's gonna be $400 only if the state picks up 100 of that $400. Now here's the issue. Many states right now are struggling financially. The previous stimulus bill did not offer any type of financial relief to the states. Republicans actually fought against that aggressively and successfully. And so without the proper funding for states, this economic relief is definitely gonna run into quite a bit of trouble. So states have asked Congress, by the way, to provide them with an additional $500 billion to help shore up their budgets, which have been crushed by the loss of tax revenue amid the pandemic. Because as you guys know, tens of millions of Americans have been unemployed and continue to be unemployed. There is also no moratorium on evictions. Even though Donald Trump is verbally saying that there is, in reality, there is not. The way that this executive order is written makes it clear that states should look at the situation and decide whether or not it makes sense to extend the moratorium in their state. On the conviction moratorium, the new measure only states that the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Director of the CDC shall consider whether any measures temporarily halting residential evictions of any tenants for failure to pay rent are reasonably necessary to prevent further spread of COVID-19. Now, Cenk, we know the details because it's our job. It's our job to read the details, to understand the details. And so we know that this type of executive order is not actually going to do what we desperately need it to do, which is provide economic relief to average Americans, make sure that states have the funding that they need, make sure that people are protected from getting evicted. But if you read the headlines over the weekend, nothing in those headlines indicates that Donald Trump is not going to follow through on what he's promising, right? The headlines make it appear as though Congress failed, and look at Donald Trump, how courageous. He signed an executive order to provide financial relief to Americans. And I think that honestly, it's a political winner for him, unless he really does fail to follow through on at least some of this and provide some unemployment relief to Americans.
So look, even when I read the headlines, I thought, oh, well, let's take a look. I mean, that's pretty cool that he's thinking about evictions and he's thinking about student debt. And on the student debt, that one's a little bit more real. So we always give credit where credit is due. But when you look at the details, it's actually even a little bit worse than Anna just explained. Let me give you a quote from Donald Trump on the issue of unemployment. When Donald Trump was asked about it over the weekend, he said, we have a system where we can do 100% or we can do 75%, they pay 25%. And it will depend on the state, he said. And they will make an application, we will look at it and we'll make a decision. So what does that mean? That means if you are an ass kisser and you come from a red state, I'll give it to you. But you come from a blue state, I'm gonna punish you and I'm not gonna give it to you. So that's what he's done historically. That's what he's basically threatening to do here. In other words, it's politics on top of politics, and it has nothing to do with helping the American people. It has everything to do with helping his political career. He gets big headlines saying, I'm here to help you on unemployment. Then he turns around and says, unless you come from what he considers to be a liberal or progressive state, in which case, no, we're not gonna help you. And by the way, in the red states, it might all be theatrics anyway, as Anna explained. Speaking of theatrics, when you go to evictions, it's nothing but theatrics. So right. he directed the Secretary of Health and Human Services and Director of the CDC to consider whether any measures should be taken. And then you got to go through an application. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. It's a one big giant lie as usual from Donald Trump.
Right, absolutely. And also, look, just quickly going back to Trump playing favoritism with states in regard to the unemployment funds. Remember, he is suffering significantly right now in the polls. And so if there's a swing state that he can provide maybe some more economic relief to, I really think that that's part of the political motivation behind what he's doing here with the executive order. I also want to just quickly talk about the payroll tax cut, because it has been presented by Donald Trump and his lackeys as a true payroll tax cut. Now, if you're unemployed, this doesn't matter, this doesn't apply to you anyway. But if you are unemployed, understand that the payroll tax cut is not actually a payroll tax cut. So the payroll tax measure does not actually reduce the payroll taxes. It defers the due date for the portion of those taxes paid by employees, 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare through December 31st. It applies to workers whose wages are less than about $104,000 a year. Payroll taxes would just have been delayed to the end of the deferment period. Companies may not want to stop withholding their employees' share of the taxes from their paychecks for that reason. And that's actually very good advice, because as soon as that payroll tax or deferment period ends, then workers are gonna have to pay quite a bit more in their taxes because those taxes were deferred. I mean, it's terrible, it's ridiculous. It's definitely a political move by Donald Trump. And luckily, some reporters did ask him some tough questions. So Cenk, I wanna go to this next video because it shows how he couldn't really handle the heat and abruptly ended an interview or a press conference after getting a bunch of specific questions about this executive order.
This is expected to be tied up in the court, so this relief is either going to be delayed or blocked.
I don't think so. I think this is going to go very rapidly through the courts. This will go very. If we get sued, maybe we won't get sued. If we get sued, it's somebody that doesn't want people to get money. Okay, and that's not going to be a very popular thing.
Go around Congress. Are you trying to set a new precedent that the president can go around Congress and decide how money is collected?
You ever hear the word obstruction? They've obstructed. Congress has obstructed. The Democrats have obstructed people from getting desperately needed money. Go ahead, please, right here.
President, why do you keep saying that you passed Veterans' Choice? You passed Veterans' Choice. It was passed in 2014.
Okay, excuse me. Go ahead, please.
But it's a false statement, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
And just to be clear, the people clapping are not reporters. There were apparently individuals who actually pay a lot of money to attend his press briefings once every 6 months. So those were his actual supporters and fans.
If you watch the Axios interview of him, I mean, he's a clown in every way, shape, and form. But I can't believe he has anybody who still follows him, and they pay to follow him. They're just the saddest people in America. Now, to the question that she asked, she said, well, why you keep saying that you passed this thing that actually passed in 2014? That's when he walked out. Because he's a liar. He's a pathological liar. He takes credit for things that are not remotely true. He keeps saying that he's the best president for African Americans since Lincoln. Sometimes he says he's better than Lincoln. I mean, Axios challenged him on, wait, you're better than Lyndon Johnson? He passed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. He's like, I don't know. People have questions about that. Nobody has questions about the Civil Rights Act. So he can't answer a real question. He's a buffoon of extraordinary proportions. Now, when it comes to the payroll tax, why just defer it to the end of the year? How much does that really help? Oh, November 3rd is before the end of the year. So I'll make it seem like I'm helping you until the election, and then bammo, after the election, I'll hit you with the whole bill. And that's how this game is played. And in terms of the executive order overall, look, this is not how the American government is supposed to work. So Bush started this nonsense, Obama continued it. called out both of them when they were presidents. And now Trump is taking it to an absurd extreme. I'm not gonna negotiate with Congress. I'm just gonna do nonsensical things, most of which I can't execute. It's all political theater. But even if I could execute some of it, who cares? Congress has to pass the law. Of course Congress has to pass a law about the payroll tax. Of course they do, right? He's like, I don't care. I don't care. I wanna be king. And if you make this incredibly stupid mistake of re-electing me, I will be. He constantly trolls and puts out videos of how he's gonna be president for the next 100 years. Like, haha, I don't care about democracy. I never cared about Congress passing the bills, and I probably won't leave if you re-elect me. And maybe even if you don't re-elect me. So that's where we are today.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.